All right, we're continuing on with our unit on advanced quadratics, and we're still digging deeper into this whole thing about imaginary numbers and complex numbers and stuff. So far we know what I is, we know where it is, and we know how to find the absolute value of what it is. Now we're going to get into simplifying expressions again. Okay, so if you remember before we did knowing how exponents for I works, we're going to start applying that. So I'm giving you two examples of simplifying expressions. Everything else is practice. Pretty straightforward. Because if you're in an Algebra 2 class, you've seen this before with polynomials. Adding and subtracting polynomials. So if we look at the first question, all we're doing is simplifying this. We're going to write the answer as a complex number. We're going to make sure the answer is in complex number format. So the first question I'm asking is we're simply subtracting two complex numbers. So there's two ways we can view this. You know, we could subtract this number from this number and look at, -6 minus 1 and -7 minus 3i. Or we could use the distributive property, which is what I prefer. Either way, we're going to simplify this expression. So I'm going to simplify by getting rid of parentheses, use the distributive property. That's just the way I do it. So we have -6 minus 7i, and then we have -1, and then minus 3i. So I've used the distributive property. Now, if you remember simplifying from pre-algebra, we know that, well, after the distributive property, we can combine like terms. Where are my like terms? So I have a -6 and a -1. That's a like term. And I have -7i's and -3i's. Right? So if I have -7 minus 3i, well, that's -10i. So I can just put these together, right? So -6 minus 1 is -7. -7i's minus 3i's gives me -10i's. And so there's my complex number. Right? How easy is that? Pretty simple, straightforward, just like algebra, pre-algebra. And just remember how we write a complex number. The real number and then the imaginary number. Now we could graph this, right, on a complex plane. We could find the absolute value of this. We can picture where this exists, right? So all that stuff, and that's just how we deal with adding or subtracting complex numbers. So what about multiplying complex numbers? We'll get into dividing in the next lesson. So now we're going to multiply these two numbers and see how it changes. All right, so now we have two numbers that we're going to multiply. So how does this work? It works the same way as binomials from, again, pre-algebra and algebra 1. So it does work the same way, just this time we're using imaginary numbers. So whichever method you used to multiply binomials, it could be all sorts of stuff. I mean, the FOIL, first, outside, inside, last, whatever you're using. It's for me, what I like to show you is using the distributive property twice. Okay, so basically what we're doing is multiplying this number through here. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to take the first number and multiply it through the second number. So I have, basically -6 minus 7i, all of that times the first number, right? And then it's being added, and -6 minus 7i times the second number. And then I use the distributive property twice. Okay? So I'm just going to use the distributive property twice. It doesn't matter which method you use. We're all going to agree at some point. So we have -6 minus 7i, and then we'd have minus 18i, and then minus 21i squared. So no matter which way you multiply those two binomials, you're going to come to this in some way. Now all we have to do is combine like terms, again, just like we've done with polynomials. So we have -6 and then minus 25i, and then minus 21i squared. And then we can celebrate and do the happy dance, and yay, we're done! And no, we're not, because we probably already forgot something from a previous lesson. We forgot something kind of magical about our good friend I squared. What is I squared? If you recall, I squared is -1. Okay, so it's the square root of -1 times the square root of -1. I squared then is -1. So we have to remember that. We can't just leave this because these two numbers are like terms. -6 minus 21i squared is a like term. because I squared is -1. So we have -6 minus 25I minus 21 times, not I squared, times -1. And that's going to make these two things like terms. So I'm looking at -6 minus 25I. This becomes plus 21. And that's why -6 and minus 21I squared are like terms. We can now combine them. Boop, boop. -6 plus 21 gives me 15. So we have 15 minus 25I. And that is my, my result, my simplified version of the complex number. So that's how we multiply. You just got to remember the trick. Remember that I squared is equal to -1. So I'll put that on there. We'll call that a day. And that's that for this lesson, because the next one gets pretty crazy. Thank you very much.